Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Mankiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hey friends, Wendy Papazan here. Excited for another exciting episode of the Empire Building podcast. And I'm here with 2 of my besties. We got Sarah Reynolds in the house and we got Seychelle Van Poole. Hi guys.
Whoop, whoop. Hi.
Hi.
Well, you know what we've been meaning to do, which we haven't done, which is to introduce ourselves a little bit more to some of our newer listeners. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I run a real estate team here in Austin, Texas. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Her Best Life. And why don't you guys just introduce yourself as well? I know we've got lots of people who've been here for years, but we've got some newbies too.
Well, I'm Sarah Reynolds. I lead a real estate sales team. Our headquarters is in the Washington, D.C. market. So we serve Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. And then I also have 9 other teams across the United States that I lead as well. And this week was a big week for me in terms of my career and my job. And I am leaning all in on leading the day-to-day of the real estate sales team, which I'm super passionate about and excited about. And I also co-founded a company called Empower Home Services. And that's a shared services company that I, as of this week, no longer run the day-to-day.
Whoop, whoop.
And a co-founder of that company. And also proud co-founder with Wendy and Say of Her Best Life. So also a mom of 3 beautiful babies. And
They're not babies anymore.
I know.
They're grown up before my eyes. Yeah.
They're darling. And Wendy has 2 amazing kids as well. So I feel like we should mention that.
Yes.
Who are just awesome and smart and dynamic. And I'm Seychelle, and we're based out of Dallas, Texas for most of the year, but sometimes during the year, we're also based out of Northern Michigan. And we have a real estate team. This is my 20th year in real estate this year.
Congrats.
Thank you. Which is weird because it's almost half of my life. Like, is that weird? That's weird. So we have a really cool real estate business here in North Texas. And one of the things I love to do is actually the job Sarah just actually handed over to some of her amazing leaders is I've always loved creating replicatable income off of something we're already doing. Like, how do you maximize that? So we've had an insurance arm for a long time and a mortgage partnership and have built up property management and sold it off and love investing. So that for me is a really fun thing that I love to do. And we have a 10-year-old daughter who's teaching me all of the fancy lingo that I did not know.
Bruh.
And so I'm learning lots of new great terms that I'm having to Google all the time. And so that's our 10-year-old daughter, Quinn, who is a budding entrepreneur herself and following a lot of the things we do at Her Best Life. And it's fun to see it spurring in our next generation.
And I feel like since so many of our listeners are in real estate, I feel like we need to pause because you have now entered the I've been doing this for 20 years phase of real estate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you're given that script of everyone that came before you at 20 years, you can start insulting every other realtor.
I need to be doing this more.
Well, Sarah, you're pretty close to that.
I'm very close, but it used to drive me nuts, the agents. It was like right when they crossed 20 years.
I've been doing this for 20 years.
It feels weird though, because in my head, I have a very specific stereotype when someone says that to me. And so
you could be the salty old realtor now.
Thank you, question mark. I'm actually very excited to get more and more salty with age. So thank you. I am pumped for that. Speaking of how many years in the business, though, I think this is actually relevant to what we're going to talk about today. Because if you got in the real estate business under the last 10 years, so 10 years or less, you are really in the last 18 months experiencing market dynamics and shifts and changes that all of us that have been in longer than 10 years actually saw happen about every 3 to 4 years in our business. But if you've been in 10 years or less, you really haven't experienced big market shifts, whether it's local or nationally. And it's causing all sorts of crazy reactions. We're observing friends of ours that got in the last 10 years where they're feeling increased pressure. Actually, all of us are. We're feeling increased pressure to drive our businesses despite lots of these obstacles. And this includes everything from Department of Justice lawsuits and National Association of Realtor lawsuits to soaring interest rates to inventory all of a sudden skyrocketing. Like most of our sales forces, if you have a team or if you're new in the business with 10 years or under, have not experienced the skill set that you have to develop to be successful in this market. They have been successful because the market has happened to them. And so it's creating a whole new stress point for business owners where we're having compression on pricing. Some people are having compression on their wages. Our ops team's wages are still remaining high. And so simply put, we as leaders have all been really stressed over the last 18 to 24 months.
Yes. Yeah. And just add on to that, as leaders, we're pouring our hearts and soul into our people. We might be losing sleep thinking about how we're going to support our team members. We're worried about their opportunity, because as the market has shifted, a lot of people are just making less money. We're worried about their livelihood. We're worried about their families and personal situations. The reality is a lot of our team members, they don't really participate in that. They have stress for sure, and everybody's stress is legitimate and their stress. And as leaders, we're dealing with everything that Seychelle talked about, which is, lower wages, debt, shrinking profits, all of those things, and still worrying about our people and our families to boot. So it's just a lot.
It is a lot. Just this week, one of my leaders stepped down. Her role was responsible for 3 locations and helping lead the sales. And I don't want to be responsible for a business right now, she said.
Yeah.
Because that's how she felt, that her responsibility of it. And it's really, really hard right now.
Yeah. Last week, we had a leader step down as well that just said, I don't want to have to deal with this.
Yep. So this has led to us seeing across the board strong, capable, smart business owners make the decision to quit and close their doors, right? So this got us thinking, a big question, and I think it's always a critical question that many of us ask ourselves at times in our lives is, should you quit? Should I quit? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Whether you are in the real estate industry or not, this episode applies because I think many of our listeners, while building an empire, at times question whether or not we're doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And so should I quit is something that comes up pretty regularly, I would say.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say all of us, if you could put a number on how many times you thought about quitting.
Yeah. We'd be rich.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very big number for me. Yeah. It's a very, very big number. And sometimes that sits with you for an hour. Sometimes it sits with you for a day. Sometimes it sits with you for a week. Sometimes it's a season.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really tough.
It really is. And so, today I'm looking forward to us having this conversation because in our own kind of private chat group in our circle with our founders with Her Best Life, we've all been grappling with this subject, whether it's our leaders feeling this way, whether it's us personally having felt this way in the last 18 months, multiple times. I think it's important for us to take a look at the reasons why people quit and then also what you should do about it. Like if you are thinking about quitting. And so I want us to dive into first, why do people quit? I think it's really important for us to pay attention to that because we as leaders need to see signs in our people and in ourselves. And so one thing that I've noticed, if we think about number 1 on the list, is a lack of progress. And so if you're not making headway despite consistent effort, this could be market forces working against you. This could be your business model working against you. This could be your environment working against you. It might be time to, first, you got to examine yourself and say, am I doing all that I can do? And then the second part is to say, if I'm doing all I can do and I'm still not getting progress in these areas, do I need to reassess some things? Is this the right environment for me? Is this the right role for me? Is this the right time? And, if you're a listener on the podcast, you've heard me say that before on if I'm hiring, it's got to be the right person, the right opportunity, and the right time. And so if you're not having that progress, it could be one of those things at play that means you need to reassess that.
That's so good, Say. And it really depends on the person. How long can someone go without winning? That's really what, so lack of progress is day in and day out, you feel like you have no wins. Like you look around and you're like, I'm not winning anywhere, right? And so everyone has a different tolerance level, I think, for how long they can stay in the like not winning sort of category. But lack of progress for sure. I think a lot of people make the decision that, well, if I'm not making progress, this just must not be for me.
Yeah.
Well, and number two reason why people quit is really just burnout. So many of us are feeling this. It's been a really tough, honestly, 4 years since COVID.
Yeah.
Where you're just feeling consistently exhausted. You're feeling overwhelmed. You wake up tired every day. You're not taking time for yourself. You're pouring into everybody else but you. And honestly, burnout can look like loneliness. A lot of studies have shown that what feels like exhaustion or overwhelm is actually loneliness, especially in real estate. I know that when I started in real estate, I thought it was a people business.
Mm-hmm.
That was my misconception. And then when I got into it, because I'm extroverted and a lot of realtors are extroverted. And I know that when I got into it, I thought, God, this business is so lonely.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
I just wake up every day and, what do I do? What's my structure? How do I win? How do I succeed? And so for me, that's part of the reason I built a team. I was quite lonely. I was like, this is really hard. I don't want to do this all by myself,
It's this idea of independent contractor, right? That sounds really exciting and entrepreneurial, and the real estate industry really thrives on. And that independent means alone. Right.
Yes.
And so it can feel so lonely. I actually have never done it by myself. Me and Say both joined our mom in real estate. And I've always been like, how in the world do people do this by themselves? I really don't know. But for sure, burnout or loneliness, big reasons. The third thing, that I think I've seen a lot and even seen a lot in my own life in terms of asking myself is misalignment, right? Misalignment with goals, misalignment maybe with values, or like you're not seeing that something fits in your long-term sort of goal box. And so worth considering changing if there's a misalignment in terms of goals or values. And if you don't see it as a long-term thing and you're not winning and you have some of these other things, you start questioning, is this for me? Might need to quit.
And that really comes with, really understanding what your values are. We were this morning, we had a meeting for the goal setting retreat, and we always do the core value exercise.
I love it.
For those of you that have been there before, it's awesome. And you just can't revisit your values enough because your values are what at your core is important to you.
Yep.
If you're waking up every day and what you're doing every day doesn't align with your core values, then of course, at the end of every day, you're going to feel very dissatisfied. So just understanding, working your way towards, aligning what you're doing every day with your core values is going to make you feel a lot more energized.
I cannot heart that one enough. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're such problem solvers here because we're talking about the reasons and then we're also helping you solve them. But we do also have a list of ways to solve. We're just addicted to helping our listeners with their problems.
We really are.
Yeah.
It's a problem, but a good one.
Yeah.
Number 4, I actually called this the universe is speaking to you for number 4. Number 4 is if you keep having persistent obstacles put in your way. And I actually experienced this earlier this year where the universe just kept dealing continual, unresolvable challenges that just kept creating these roadblocks for certain specific paths. And no matter how hard I'm trying to run around it and jump over it and flip over it, the universe is delivering a no, this is not the path. And I really think I had to take a big step back and kind of open my brain back up and say, is this the way that we need to go? Is this the right way? Is this the right thing to do?
So I'm going to just speak my old lady wisdom because I'm in my 50s, For those of you that are listening, this can look like little things or big things.
Yes.
Okay. So if life is showing up, because we're all real gritty, and we're not saying if something comes up, you shouldn't figure out a way to get around it. But what Seychelle is saying is really true. If there are persistent obstacles, you need to listen to the universe. You need to listen to God. It's telling you, hey, you know what? This is not the right way for you. And it could even be little. So we were out on date night the other night and I ordered a drink and they didn't know how to make it at the bar. So they came back. Then I asked for another drink and they didn't know how to make it at the bar. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have a drink tonight.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what that
2
means.
strikes, I'm out.
Well, it's interesting too. Like, I think this also applies to when you have goals. And like, for example, Nick and I are really focused right now on moving from equity building assets to income producing assets. But my comfort level has a ceiling of like where I have grown to. And the universe keeps trying to literally pull me back to that comfort level. And so we're aiming towards and pushing towards different goals. And I kid you not, in the last 45 days, I've had 6 different things try to either get in the way of us attaining this goal or tempt us back into our comfort level and say, well, we could just do this because it's comfortable. We could do this because we know it. It's easy, instead of pushing ourselves to grow outside of our comfort zone. Now, I'm not saying we're doing 180 degrees different than what we already know, but we're raising our lid. And because we're raising our lid, it's like the universe is like, no, come back to the comfort. Like, no, come back to where it's easy. And we're paying attention to that.
I mean, how do you distinguish that then? I mean, because I feel like we just kind of said 2 different things, which is like, if there's a persistent obstacle, but then at the same time, when you're trying to grow, like, how do you work that out?
I think that's funny because, my view is sometimes there's also like the bad of the universe, and we don't want to get into lots of different things here, but like, if the mission is so big, I had this moment this week, and right in the middle of a really big company-wide announcement, the internet at the office shut down yesterday, right in the middle of it. And I looked at my amazing executive assistant and I said, see, we're on to something really big.
Mm-hmm.
Because I viewed it as sometimes when it's such a big mission, and our big mission is to one day give back $100 million to worthy causes. That's a pretty big mission. Sometimes those that don't want that, I mean, it sort of goes with point number, I don't want to jump ahead here, but point number 5, we could argue as, Wendy, why don't you share with everyone, what's the 5th reason? And then let's continue this discussion because I think it's good.
Well, number 5 is no joy or fulfillment. So if you're not finding satisfaction and joy or what you're doing, it could be a sign to quit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like sometimes those go together. Like,
right.
If you are super fulfilled and joyful and you're having lots of obstacles, sometimes the joy and fulfillment is worth the obstacles.
Absolutely.
And so it's not always black and white, this kind of decision, which is obviously makes this conversation very hard.
It's very nuanced.
Yeah.
And it's paying attention. I think really what it is it's paying attention. It's paying attention to, like, what does your inner self say when things continually happen? Is it that your mission and your goal, you're determined to figure it out and it brings you joy in the pursuit of that? And there's obstacles and you can be gritty and work through them? Or is it that you feel obligated to do this role?
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting lots of obstacles. You're still having to be gritty. And at the end of every day, you feel exhausted, worn out, tired, cranky. And then you get up to suffer again.
Yep.
And I think it's listening to, like, I love our counselor. She's great. She's really taught me to like pay attention to like your inner chakra, your inner sacrum, to like listen to like what literally right below my rib cage, what is my body saying? Like, what's my physical reaction in this situation, and how long am I going to listen or not listen to that?
So there's multiple reasons why people quit, right? Lack of progress, burnout, misalignment of goals, persistent obstacles, no joy or fulfillment. If you're listening and you're like, oh my goodness, they are speaking to me, I feel one of these things. So what should you do about it, right? So let's talk through, what have we done? We've had all of these moments in our lives and our career as you build your empire. It seems like the more people you have in your life, the more obstacles you have. And so what should you do when you feel that?
Well, I think it's, we do an exercise called Finding Your Joy.
Yeah.
We've done it for our circle many times, and we've done it at our big Her Best Life events. And it's pretty simple. It's really thinking about all those touch points that make you happy.
Okay, so that's point number 1, right? Is like,
yeah, figuring out what makes you really happy. And an easy way to do that is to really pick up your phone and look at the pictures in your phone if you're someone who takes pictures, and just look through your pictures and see what brought you happiness.
Yeah.
And do more of that. Literally do more of that, or different kinds of that. And that's the first step there, is just really rediscover what makes you happy. Because so many of us, we put on our armor, we are a good soldier, we get up every day, we do what we're supposed to do. We really never take the time to think about, hey, you know what, could something be different here?
yeah.
Could I be 1% happier tomorrow by doing this?
Mm-hmm.
boy, is this episode so dear to me this week in particular, because as I shared in the beginning, I made a big decision this week, or announced a big decision this week, to say no to a role that I had been in, co-founded, developed a lot of it, and I didn't step down.
You fired yourself.
Yeah, I fired myself.
You hired other people.
Yes. It goes back though to my joy, right? Like, it was 3 weeks ago, I had this huge aha, talking with my husband. Is like, I'm miserable. I'm not following my joy. When I looked at my phone, what brought me joy was being with our agents and being with our people. And in the role that I was in as leading our shared services company, I was getting further and further away from our agents, from our people. And I think it's such a powerful thing when you really sit down and think about what brings you joy, what brings you happiness. And if you're in a role, if you're doing something that doesn't, most people cannot do that long term. We all have grit to where we can grit through it, but most people can't. And so if you're thinking about quitting, the first thing is like, think through, is this in my joy zone?
What I love following on that is kind of step 2 of that, which is number 1, make sure your joy is on your calendar. That was a big lesson I learned from our whole circle, was I had lots of things that brought me joy, but when I looked at my calendar, it was all work and no play. And so make sure that your joy is reflected on your calendar so that you're always making sure that that's protected and in there. That's something 10 years ago y'all taught me that I still do. But the second part of that Sarah's really modeling out here for you is to say, am I in my joy zone? Am I in my strength zone in my role? And then you actually went back to the table and rewrote your job description. And you realigned your team around that job description. And the beauty of it is by you saying no to this gave 2 other incredibly powerful leaders in your organization an opportunity to say yes and grow. And it's also going to give you a gift back with your family to be able to show up fulfilled and in your joy zone at home too, which I really think is great.
Well, and I bet that everyone around you knew that was the right decision even before you did.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. My partners called me. So I have 5 amazing partners throughout the United States. And they literally said, we've been praying for this for over a year together.
Yeah, I knew it. Oh, I just got chills. Yeah, because your team sees you. And sometimes your community sees you and they know. And when you sit down and you talk to them and you're honest with them, they're like, yeah, we want you to go out. Hey, that's usually what's best for the team anyway.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the right seat on the bus, including the leader. We all have different strengths as a leader. It might be that my strength is going out and teaching and speaking and all of that. And it might be that Seychelles is something different. It might be that Sarah's is something different. And so you get to do that as the leader. There are certain things that you don't get to give up, and we have other podcasts about that. But, you do get to decide some pieces of your leadership puzzle.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's the benefit of building that empire, right?
Yeah.
Is it the best job for you? And it leads to number 3, right? Is could someone do it better? That's the thing. And that was sort of the decision for me was, I wanted to lean into our real estate team. And that's where I get my joy. That's where I get my fulfillment. That's what I want to do every single day is really help realtors with the right heart stay in the industry. That is such a big part of what fulfills me. And thankfully, I had 2 leaders that can do the role that I was in better than me. And one of the biggest things for me with this decision was I have very low rapid problem solving. And when you are leading a day-to-day operation of 130 team members, indecision is decision, and it causes a lot of lack of clarity. Where Matt, who is taking on the role of one of the leaders of this shared services company, he's like 9 out of 10 on rapid problem solving. And so team members, leaders in the shared services company would come to me about something or would come to another leader about something that was slower, and it would slow us down. And now I know that they can go faster. So could someone do it better than you? Thankfully, I learned from Gary to surround myself with talent. And I had someone that could do it better, which then allowed for me, that was an opportunity for them, that allowed for me to then say yes towards my joy. And so is it making you happy? Are you doing the best job? Or could someone do it better for you? All of these questions are so powerful to ask when you're contemplating quitting.
We give all of you permission to rewrite your job description.
Yeah.
You guys get to go home and, you've already got your not to do list if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time. And you get to go home and you get to write your new job description. And with that, you get to realign your team or your family roles. And, I know, Sarah, it took you about 3 weeks to work through that. So it's not something that's going to happen in an hour. It's not going to happen over lunch. It's going to require some thinking on your part. You need to plan it out. You need to think about the impact on your business and what that's going to look like and how you're going to fill those gaps. And this is entirely possible for you to just go and rewrite your job description.
And the biggest thing that takes time is our people around us, their emotions. I'm such a believer that humans are emotional beings that think. Some people say that they're thinking beings that feel, but I believe humans are feeling beings that think. And when you do that, it takes time to navigate your team as you're taking on a different role or stepping down from a different role. They have emotions around that and for themselves as well. And it takes time. And so you never want to do something like this without talking it through with them and navigating it and seeing what's in it for them with the decision as well. And so it takes time to do that. But you absolutely get to rewrite that job description and realign the team and family, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome. And if all of this is you're hearing and I could rewrite my job description, but I'm still going to hate it. Or like, I could do this, like, it's still not going to bring me joy. There is a final option here, which is you could actually quit. Or you could actually have an extreme pivot. And if all of the items up above you're trying and it's still not working, we were talking right before we started recording, I've had conversations with multiple people in our market that have been in real estate for a long time and built really successful businesses, and they're just not joyful about it. They're not in their joy zone. No matter what they do, they've tried to redo it 5 or 6 times. They're just not there. And they're literally just quitting and chasing their joy and doing something else. And if you're thinking about that, make sure you're reaching out to one of us before you just exit. Like, we can help you with exit strategies that will not cause you just to have to completely shut your doors and not retain revenue. So make sure, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, that's me, I just want out. Reach out to us as podcast hosts. We have resources available to help you with that. All 3 of us have done that successfully with people. And the dirty little secret here is we don't want you to quit. We want to fight for you to stay in. We want to fight for you to build your empire. But sometimes it's okay just to say the road I'm on is not the highway I'm supposed to be on. And I need to change complete directions in order to chase my joy and do something different. And that's a beautiful, brave thing to do too. And we want to give you permission to do that. Just don't completely lose your revenue. Let us know so we can help you with it. But we do really want you to find your joy. We want you to build that big, beautiful empire. And we want you to have a big life in the process of it too.
So go out there and build your big business and even bigger life.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a good week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.